Unrefined shapes can mean poorly drawn elements. It happens at all levels of branding. Let's talk about it. Vector art is the medium in which all identities should be created, but it can be deceptive. It can give the impression that shapes are better than they are because the edges are crisp and clean without necessarily being well rendered or refined. This can be especially true when altering letter forms, as we can see here, if the designer fails to be sensitive to the inherent shapes of the fonts. Something about Intel's logo must have bothered the company because they have replaced the design. And speaking of poorly rendered letter forms, this is obviously not a properly rendered type font design. Curves also can demand sensitive execution. Initially, they can look passable, but on further inspection, we notice that subtle sensitivities are missing. Over time, these clumsy curves can become irksome and grating. Note the inept curves at the right and how the curves are not even attempted in the bottoms of the sails. With curves, our eyes are coaxed into following a particular sweep. If the trajectory deviates from the anticipated course, it is disruptive. If it is overt and explicit, it becomes a focal point. If it is merely unskilled deviation, it is the mark of amateur drawing. In the logo at the left, the thickness of the straight lines is close but not the same as those containing the circle, and for no good reason. Irregular gaps between elements of the logo at the right are laughable, not to mention the clumsy treatment of the letters themselves. In the first logo, the lines converge to form a solid, but the perimeter of that convergent solid edge is lumpy and uneven. Lack of sensitivity to angles is another common shortcoming. In the logo at the right, the angles of the F are not the same as the angles of the containing box, neither coinciding nor contrasting. Interestingly, when designers reach too far, they can over-stylize or over-refine an identity to the point of making it unrecognizable. Prudential Life Insurance had this happen when they simplified their logo so much that people no longer perceived the Rock of Gibraltar. They had to back off to a stylized but identifiable graphic. Likewise, the designer of the Ibsen wordmark took their quest for leading edge to such an extent that they hoped people would read a lowercase I from a mere dot. It was too much to expect. Spotify is one of the leading music streaming apps. That makes it a technology company. One might expect exactness in a logo for that kind of business. How sad that they have such an unrefined logo. It looks like concentric arcs on first glance, but on closer examination it is clumsy. Spotify made a change in its identity recently, but has not gotten around to fixing their bungled logo. One may look at the concentric arcs and think there's something a bit off, but when overlaid with geometrically drawn concentric arcs, one can really see the slipshod job they did with their logo. They've only been around since 2008 and have updated their identity 2 times since then, but never bothered fixing the sloppy arcs in their logo. It all comes down to a principle I call visual logic. Everything you draw sets up a visual expectation for the rest. In a series of uniform structures, one element that is slightly atypical will stick out like the proverbial sore thumb. If the difference is deliberate, overt, and skillfully done, it becomes a point of emphasis. If it is not, it just comes across as ineptitude and clumsiness. This is why unrefined shapes is one of the deadly sins of logo design. For more information, go to logodesigntheory.com. If you found this useful, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and share this with anyone who needs to know about logo design.